Aaron Carter's fingers flew across the keyboard, his eyes darting between multiple monitors as he put the finishing touches on his latest project proposal. The office around him hummed with activity, but he remained laser-focused on his work. As project manager, he took pride in his meticulous attention to detail and ability to juggle complex tasks. Glancing at his watch, Aaron realized it was past 7 p.m. He'd lost track of time again. With a sigh, he saved his work and began shutting down his computer. The day had flown by in a blur of meetings and deadlines. Now all he wanted was to get home to Lena and unwind. The drive home was a welcome respite after the intensity of the workday. Aaron felt the tension start to ease from his shoulders as he pulled into the driveway of the modest suburban home he shared with his wife of 8 years. A smile tugged at his lips as he thought of Lena. She was the calm to his storm, the warmth to his logic. Her yoga classes kept her busy, but he looked forward to their quiet evenings together. Entering the house, Aaron called out, "Lena, I'm home." Silence greeted him. He frowned slightly, remembering Lena had mentioned something about a late class. Shrugging off his jacket, he headed to the kitchen to grab a quick snack before jumping in the shower. As he passed the bathroom, something caught his eye. The trash can was overflowing slightly, a white stick poking out from beneath crumpled tissues. Aaron paused, a chill running down his spine as recognition dawned. With trembling fingers, he reached down and pulled out the object. A pregnancy test. Positive. Aaron's mind reeled as he stared at the 2 pink lines. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. Just 3 months ago, he'd undergone a vasectomy. He hadn't told Lena, believing they were on the same page about remaining childless. Now, holding irrefutable evidence to the contrary, his world began to tilt on its axis. He sank to the floor, back pressed against the cool tile as his thoughts raced. There had to be an explanation. Maybe the test was faulty. Or perhaps, no. He pushed the thought away, unwilling to consider the alternative. Lena wouldn't betray him like that. She couldn't. But as Aaron sat there, pieces began falling into place. The late-night yoga workshops that seemed to run longer and longer. The way Lena's phone was always face down these days. Her growing emotional distance. "No," he whispered, the words sounding hollow in the empty bathroom. Rising on shaky legs, Aaron moved to the bedroom. He needed to think, to process. But everywhere he looked, he saw signs of the life he and Lena had built together. Photos from their honeymoon. The dresser they'd refinished as a couple's project. Her pillow still holding the indent of her head. Suddenly, the house felt suffocating. Aaron grabbed his keys and headed out, driving aimlessly as night fell. His mind churned with possibilities, each more painful than the last. By the time he returned home hours later, a cold resolve had settled in his chest. He wouldn't confront Lena. Not yet. First, he needed proof. The next morning, Aaron woke early, his sleep fitful and plagued by nightmares. He showered and dressed for work as usual, his movements mechanical. When Lena stirred, he kissed her cheek and muttered something about an early meeting. Instead of heading to the office, Aaron parked a block away from their house. He waited, watching as Lena left for her morning yoga class. Once she was gone, he let himself back inside. The house was quiet, almost mocking in its normalcy. Aaron moved from room to room, searching for what? He wasn't sure. A love letter? Incriminating texts? Part of him hoped to find nothing, to prove his suspicions unfounded. But another part, a colder, more calculating part, was already planning his next move. He was in the kitchen, idly straightening some papers on the counter, when he heard the front door open. Panic surged through him. Lena wasn't due back for hours. Had she forgotten something? Aaron froze, straining to hear. Lena's voice drifted from the entryway, hushed, but clearly agitated. "Mom, I don't know what to do," she was saying. "I can't keep this up much longer." Aaron's breath caught in his throat. He inched closer to the kitchen doorway, careful to remain out of sight. Lena continued, her voice trembling slightly. "Of course, I'll tell him it's his. Nolan isn't ready for a baby. He might leave me if I push him for more. And besides, Aaron's always wanted a baby. It'll be easy to convince him. He's so naive." The world seemed to tilt beneath Aaron's feet. He gripped the doorframe, knuckles turning white as the full weight of Lena's betrayal crashed over him. Nolan. The name burned in his mind. Her fitness trainer. The man she'd sworn was just a friend. Lena's voice faded as she moved further into the house. Aaron stood rooted to the spot, his mind a maelstrom of emotions. Rage, hurt, and a cold, creeping desire for vengeance warred within him. When he finally moved, it was with a calm that surprised even himself. He slipped out of the house undetected, drove to work, and threw himself into his projects with laser focus. To any observer, it was just another day at the office for Aaron Carter. But inside, plans were forming, wheels were turning, and the man who entered that house would never be the same. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within Aaron. He lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, acutely aware of Lena's sleeping form beside him. Her gentle breathing, once a comfort, now filled him with a mixture of revulsion and pain. He waited until she left for her morning class before rising. Then, with methodical precision, he began to pack. Suitcases emerged from the closet, filling quickly with clothes and personal items. Aaron moved through the house like a ghost, gathering the pieces of his life. Family photos were left behind, too painful to contemplate. But his laptop, important documents, and a few cherished mementos made their way into the bags. In the kitchen, he paused. The pregnancy test still sat in the bathroom trash, a silent accusation. With a grimace, Aaron retrieved it, sealing it in a small evidence bag he'd procured for just this purpose. It might prove useful later. Next came the financial coup de grace. Aaron logged into their joint accounts, transferring every cent to a private account he'd set up years ago for emergencies. He changed passwords on all his personal accounts, erasing Lena's access in one fell swoop. As he worked, a cold satisfaction began to replace the hurt. Let her come home to emptiness. Let her feel a fraction of the betrayal he'd endured. With his belongings packed and loaded into the car, Aaron took one last look around the house that had been his home for nearly a decade. Memories assaulted him: lazy Sunday mornings, holiday gatherings, quiet nights curled up on the couch. He pushed them aside, hardening his heart against the onslaught of emotion. There was one final task to complete before he vanished from Lena's life. Aaron booted up his laptop, fingers flying across the keys as he composed an email. The recipient? Hannah Mitchell, Nolan's unsuspecting wife. The message was brief, clinical. Mrs. Mitchell, I believe this belongs to your husband. Sincerely, Aaron Carter. Attached was a photo of the positive pregnancy test. Aaron hit send without hesitation. Let the dominoes fall where they may. With a final sweep of the house to ensure he'd left no trace, Aaron locked the front door and walked away. He didn't look back as he climbed into his car and drove off, leaving behind the shattered remains of his marriage. Hours later, Lena returned home, arms laden with groceries and a spring in her step. Today was the day, she'd decided. She would tell Aaron about the pregnancy, spinning the tale she'd rehearsed countless times. He'd be thrilled, she was sure, and with a baby on the way, she could finally extricate herself from the mess with Nolan. Aaron, she called, pushing open the front door. I picked up some steak for dinner. I thought we could celebrate. Silence greeted her. Lena frowned, setting the bags on the kitchen counter. It wasn't like Aaron to be late without texting. She pulled out her phone, ready to call him, when something caught her eye. The house felt different, empty somehow. Heart pounding, Lena moved from room to room. Aaron's closet, once full, now gaped with emptiness. His dresser drawers hung open, picked clean of contents. In the office, his prized collection of vintage sci-fi novels had vanished from the shelves. No, Lena whispered, panic rising in her throat. No, no, no. She fumbled for her phone, dialing Aaron's number with trembling fingers. It went straight to voicemail. Text messages went undelivered. Emails bounced back, the account apparently deactivated. Lena sank to the floor, her mind reeling. How had he found out? What did he know? And where had he gone? As the reality of her situation sank in, Lena did the only thing she could think of. She called Nolan. Across town, in a tastefully decorated home office, Hannah Mitchell stared at her computer screen in shock. The email from Aaron Carter, a name she didn't recognize, sat open before her. But it was the attachment that had her world spinning off its axis. A positive pregnancy test, and the implication that it belonged to her husband. Hannah's hands shook as she reached for her phone. She and Nolan had been trying for a baby for years, with no success. Now this stranger was telling her that Nolan had not only cheated, but potentially fathered a child with another woman. As she dialed Nolan's number, a cold determination settled over her. One way or another, she would get to the bottom of this. And if what this errand said was true, well, Nolan was about to learn just how ruthless Hannah Mitchell could be when crossed. In a small, sparsely furnished apartment across town, Aaron sat on the edge of a rented bed. His laptop glowed in the dim room, open to a series of emails and documents. Bank statements, property records, text logs, all the digital breadcrumbs of Lena and Nolan's betrayal. He'd spent hours compiling evidence, building a case that would leave no doubt about their affair. It wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. No, Aaron's goal had shifted. Now, he wanted to ensure that Lena and Nolan's carefully constructed house of lies came crashing down around them. A notification pinged on his phone. An email from Hannah Mitchell. Aaron allowed himself a small, grim smile as he opened it. The pieces were falling into place. Soon, Lena and Nolan would learn the true cost of their deceit. As night fell over the city, for lives hung in precarious balance. Lena, frantically trying to reach both Aaron and Nolan. Nolan, caught between two women and his own web of lies. Hannah, steeling herself for confrontation. And Aaron, orchestrating it all from the shadows. The storm was gathering, and when it broke, no one would emerge unscathed. Aaron sat in his rented apartment, fingers drumming restlessly on the arm of his chair. The clock on the wall ticked away the seconds, each one bringing him closer to the moment when Lena would return home to find him gone. He imagined her confusion, the panic that would set in as she realized the extent of what had happened. His phone buzzed. A text from Hannah Mitchell. "We need to talk. In person." Aaron's lips curved into a cold smile. He typed back a quick response, suggesting a quiet cafe across town. As he hit send, another notification popped up. Lena. Her name on the screen sent a jolt of anger through him. He declined the call without hesitation. Across town, Lena paced the living room, phone clutched to her ear. "Come on, Aaron," she muttered. "Pick up, damn it." The call went to voicemail again. She let out a frustrated growl, tossing the phone onto the couch. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the empty spaces where Aaron's things had been. How had it all fallen apart so quickly? The phone buzzed. Lena lunged for it, hope flaring in her chest. But it wasn't Aaron. "Nolan," she breathed, answering the call. "Thank God. I need your help. Aaron's gone. He took everything. I think he knows." "Lena, stop." Nolan's voice was cold, clipped. "We can't do this anymore." Lena froze. What? What are you talking about?" "The affair, the baby, all of it. It's over." There was a pause. Then Nolan continued, his tone laced with barely concealed panic. "My wife knows, Lena. Somehow, she found out about the pregnancy test." "That's impossible," Lena whispered. "I was so careful." "Well, clearly not careful enough." Nolan snapped. "Do you have any idea what this could do to me? My reputation, my business, it's all on the line." Lena's knees went weak. She sank onto the couch, mind reeling. "Nolan, please. We can figure this out. The baby is not my problem." Nolan cut her off. "I'm sorry, Lena, but I can't be involved in this. Don't contact me again." The line went dead. Lena stared at the phone in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. In the span of a few hours, her carefully constructed world had crumbled to dust. Meanwhile, Aaron sat across from Hannah Mitchell in a dimly lit cafe. She was an attractive woman, poised and put together, but he could see the strain around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands as she clutched her coffee cup. "I appreciate you meeting with me, Mr. Carter," Hannah said, her voice low and controlled. "I have to admit, your email came as quite a shock." Aaron nodded, his face a mask of sympathy. "I can imagine. And please call me Aaron. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Hannah's eyes flashed with a mixture of pain and anger. How long have you known? About your wife and my husband? Not long, Aaron admitted. I found out yesterday. The pregnancy test, it was like a punch to the gut. Hannah's knuckles whitened around her cup. Nolan and I, we've been trying for a baby for years. I thought she broke off, composing herself. Well, it doesn't matter what I thought. What matters now is what we're going to do about it. Aaron leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. What do you have in mind? A cold smile played at the corners of Hannah's lips. I've been collecting evidence of Nolan's indiscretions for a while now. Financial records, suspicious transactions. I always hoped I'd never have to use them, but now you have no choice, Aaron finished for her. Hannah nodded. Exactly. And from what you've told me about your wife, it seems we both have a score to settle. As they bent their heads together, plotting their revenge, Aaron felt a surge of vindication. Lena and Nolan had no idea what was coming for them. Back at the house, Lena sat surrounded by scattered papers and open laptops. She'd been trying for hours to access their joint accounts, only to find them drained. Passwords changed, credit cards canceled. It was as if Aaron had erased her from his life with surgical precision. The doorbell rang, startling her. For a moment, hope flared in her chest. Maybe it was Aaron, coming home to talk things through. She rushed to the door, yanking it open. Aaron, the words died on her lips as she found herself face to face not with her husband, but with her mother, Bethany. Bethany Miller swept past her daughter into the house, her critical gaze taking in the chaos. Well, she said, her voice dripping with disapproval. I see you've made quite a mess of things. Lena's shoulders slumped. Mom, please. I don't need a lecture right now. Oh, I think you do, Bethany retorted, settling herself on the couch. Sit down, Lena. We need to talk about how you're going to fix this disaster. Reluctantly, Lena sank into the chair opposite her mother. There's nothing to fix, she said, her voice hollow. Aaron's gone. He knows about the affair, about the baby. He's left me with nothing. Bethany's eyes narrowed. Nothing? Don't be dramatic, Lena. You're carrying his child. That has to count for something. Lena's laugh was bitter. It's not his child, Mom. You know that. Details. Bethany waved her hand dismissively. What matters is what you can prove. And right now, you're a pregnant woman whose husband has abandoned her. Use that. Lena stared at her mother in disbelief. You want me to lie? To trap Aaron with a baby that isn't his? I want you to be practical, Bethany snapped. You've made your bed, Lena. Now it's time to figure out how to lie in it comfortably. She leaned forward, her voice softening slightly. Think about it. Aaron has a good job, a stable income. He'd make a much better father than that Jim rat you've been fooling around with. Lena felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. I can't believe you're suggesting this. Oh, grow up, Bethany rolled her eyes. This is the real world, Lena. You need to start thinking about your future and the future of that baby. Aaron may be angry now, but men come around, especially when there's a child involved. As her mother continued to outline her plan, Lena felt a growing sense of desperation. Was this really what her life had come to? Lying, manipulating, using an innocent child as a pawn? But as the reality of her situation sank in no money, no job, a baby on the way, Lena found herself nodding along. What choice did she have? Across town, Aaron was putting the finishing touches on his own plan. He'd spent the afternoon with Hannah, comparing notes and strategizing. Now, back in his temporary apartment, he opened his laptop and began to type. First, an email to his company's HR department, explaining that he and Lena were separating due to her infidelity. He requested that she be removed from his insurance and any other benefits immediately. Next, a series of messages to their mutual friends. He didn't go into detail, but the implication was clear. Lena had betrayed him, and he was cutting ties. Finally, he opened a new document and began to outline his case for divorce. Infidelity, financial deception, the works. By the time he was finished, Aaron felt a grim sense of satisfaction. The net was closing in. His phone buzzed again. Another missed call from Lena. Aaron's finger hovered over the block button for a moment before he set the phone aside. Let her stew for a while longer. He'd face her soon enough. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a mockery of the storm brewing in the lives of those caught in Aaron's web of revenge. He dressed carefully, choosing a crisp suit that radiated confidence and control. Today was the day he'd start to dismantle Lena's world piece by piece. His first stop was the law office of Patricia Hendricks, a shark of a divorce attorney recommended by Hannah. As he laid out his case, Patricia's eyebrows rose higher and higher. "Well, Mr. Carter," she said when he'd finished, "I have to say, you've certainly done your homework. With the evidence you've gathered, we should be able to push for a swift and decisive divorce in your favor." Aaron nodded, a cold smile playing at his lips. "That's exactly what I want to hear. How soon can we file?" Patricia's answering grin was predatory. "I can have the papers drawn up by this afternoon. Shall we say 3 p.m.? Perfect." As Aaron left the office, his phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. "It's done. I filed for divorce and alerted the authorities about Nolan's financial irregularities. The storm is about to break." Aaron allowed himself a moment of pure, vindictive pleasure. Everything was falling into place. Meanwhile, Lena's world was crumbling around her. She'd woken to a flurry of messages from friends, all expressing shock and disappointment. It seemed Aaron had been busy. Her phone rang. The gym where she taught yoga classes. With a sinking feeling, Lena answered. "Lena, it's Mark." Her boss's voice was strained. "We need to talk about your position here." Lena's heart sank. "Mark, whatever you've heard, I'm sorry, Lena, but we can't have this kind of drama associated with our studio. We're going to have to let you go." The call ended, leaving Lena staring at her phone in disbelief. In the span of 24 hours, she'd lost her husband, her lover, and now her job. What else could possibly go wrong? A knock at the door answered her question. Lena opened it to find a courier holding out a thick envelope. "Lena Carter?" At her nod, he handed her the package. "You've been served." With trembling hands, Lena opened the envelope. Divorce papers. Aaron was suing her for divorce on grounds of infidelity and financial deception. And he had evidence. Lots of it. As she sank to the floor, papers scattered around her, Lena finally allowed herself to break down. Sobs racked her body as the full weight of her choices came crashing down. Across town, Aaron sat in his temporary office, methodically working through his projects. To his colleagues, he appeared focused, professional. No one would guess at the turmoil roiling beneath the surface. His phone buzzed. A message from Lena. "Aaron, please. We need to talk. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but please don't do this. I'm pregnant. We can work this out." Aaron's jaw clenched. He typed back a single line. "The child isn't mine. We both know that." He hit send, then immediately blocked her number. Enough was enough. As the day wore on, reports started trickling in. Nolan Mitchell had been arrested on suspicion of financial fraud. His gym was being investigated. Clients were canceling memberships left and right. Hannah had moved swiftly and decisively, using her connections in the real estate world to spread the word about Nolan's indiscretions. By nightfall, his reputation would be in tatters. Aaron leaned back in his chair, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over him. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. Lena and Nolan's carefully constructed lives were falling apart, piece by piece. But he wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. As night fell, Aaron drove back to the house he'd shared with Lena. It was time for a confrontation. Time to look her in the eye and see the realization of what she'd lost. He pulled into the driveway, steeling himself for what was to come. The lights were on inside, a warm glow that once meant home and comfort. Now, it just filled him with cold determination. Aaron stepped out of the car and walked to the front door. He still had his key, but he rang the doorbell instead. Let Lena come to him. After a moment, the door opened. Lena stood there, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, hair disheveled. She looked like she'd aged years in a day. "Aaron," she breathed, relief and fear warring in her voice. "You came back." "Not for long," he replied, his tone icy. "We need to talk." Aaron stepped into the house, his eyes sweeping over the familiar surroundings. Everything looked the same, yet felt entirely different. Lena stood before him, a mixture of hope and fear etched on her face. "Aaron," she began, but he cut her off with a raised hand. Save it, Lena. I'm not here for apologies or explanations. His voice was cold, devoid of the warmth it once held for her. I'm here to make things clear. Lena's shoulders slumped. She gestured towards the living room. Can we at least sit down? Aaron nodded curtly, following her into the room. He chose to stand, unwilling to settle into the comfort of their shared space. Lena perched on the edge of the sofa, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I got the divorce papers, she said softly. Good, Aaron replied. Then you know where we stand. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Aaron, please. We can work this out. The baby is not mine, he finished for her, his tone sharp. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise. But we could raise it together, Lena pleaded. You've always wanted children. We could be a family. Aaron let out a harsh laugh. A family built on lies? No thanks. He paced the room, anger radiating from every movement. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That you could just pass off another man's child as mine, and I'd be none the wiser? Lena flinched at his words. I made a mistake, Aaron. A terrible mistake. But I love you. We can get past this. Love. Aaron spat the word like a curse. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spread your legs for your fitness trainer. Lena gasped, the crudeness of his words a slap in the face. That's not fair. Nolan and it just happened. Things like that don't just happen, Lena. You made a choice, and now you're facing the consequences. He turned to face her fully, his eyes hard. Here's how this is going to go. You're going to sign the divorce papers. You're going to move out of this house. And you're going to leave me alone. But where will I go? Lena's voice was small, frightened. I've lost my job. I have no money. That's not my problem, Aaron said coldly. You should have thought of that before you decided to cheat. Lena stood, desperation clear in her stance. Aaron, please. I'm pregnant. I can't do this alone. For a moment, something flickered in Aaron's eyes, a hint of the man who had once loved her. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by steely resolve. You're not alone, Lena. You have Nolan, remember? Oh, wait, he sneered, I forgot. He dumped you as soon as things got tough, didn't he? Lena's face crumpled. How did you know about that? Aaron's smile was cold. I know everything, Lena. Every lie, every deceit. And I'm done with all of it. He moved towards the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. You have 1 week to move out. After that, I'm changing the locks. As he stepped outside, Lena's broken sobs followed him. Aaron didn't look back. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings and strategic moves. Aaron threw himself into his work, channeling his pain and anger into productivity. His colleagues marveled at his focus, unaware of the turmoil beneath the surface. One sunny afternoon, as Aaron sat in his new apartment reviewing some contracts, his phone buzzed. It was Hannah Mitchell. Aaron, are you free to talk? He set aside his work. Of course, Hannah. What's up? Her voice was tight with suppressed excitement. It's done. The divorce is final. Nolan didn't get a penny. Aaron allowed himself a small smile. Congratulations, Hannah. How do you feel? Relieved, she sighed. And a little lost, to be honest. I've been so focused on taking Nolan down, I'm not sure what to do now. I understand, Aaron said softly. But you're free now. You can start fresh. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What about you, Aaron? How are things with Lena? Aaron's jaw clenched. Moving forward. She's out of the house. The divorce should be finalized soon. And the baby? Hannah asked hesitantly. Not my concern, Aaron said firmly. Lena made her bed. Now she can lie in it. After hanging up, Aaron sat back, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over him. Nolan was ruined, his reputation and finances in tatters. Lena was out of his life, left to face the consequences of her actions alone. He had won, so why didn't he feel victorious? Pushing the thought aside, Aaron returned to his work. He had a life to rebuild. Weeks turned into months. Aaron threw himself into his career, climbing the corporate ladder with single-minded determination. His personal life remained barren, but he told himself he preferred it that way. No attachments meant no chance of betrayal. It was a crisp fall morning when Aaron's carefully constructed new life faced its first real test. He was leaving his favorite coffee shop, briefcase in one hand and latte in the other. when a familiar voice stopped him in his tracks. Aaron. He turned slowly, coming face to face with Lena. She looked different, thinner, paler, with dark circles under her eyes. Her hand rested protectively on her swollen belly. For a moment, neither spoke. The busy street faded away, leaving just the two of them in a bubble of shared history and pain. Lena broke the silence first. How are you? Aaron's grip tightened on his coffee cup. Fine, he said curtly. You? Lena's eyes filled with tears. I'm managing. Aaron, I don't. He cut her off. Whatever you're going to say, I don't want to hear it. He made to move past her, but Lena's next words stopped him cold. The baby's a girl, she said softly. I'm naming her Lily, after your grandmother. Aaron felt like he'd been punched in the gut. His grandmother Lily had been the only real family he'd had growing up. Lena knew how much she had meant to him. He turned back, anger flaring. You don't get to do that, he hissed. You don't get to use my family to try and manipulate me. Lena flinched. That's not what I'm doing. I wanted you to know. Know what? Aaron's voice was rising, drawing curious glances from passersby. That you're using my grandmother's name for a child that isn't even mine? A child you conceived while betraying everything we built together. Tears were flowing freely down Lena's cheeks now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. For a moment, Aaron was transported back to happier times. Lazy Sunday mornings, playful banter over breakfast, the warmth of Lena's smile. But the memory was tainted now, poisoned by betrayal. He took a deep breath, forcing his voice to remain steady. Your apologies mean nothing to me, Lena. You made your choice. Now live with it. With that, he turned and walked away, ignoring Lena's broken sobs behind him. His coffee had gone cold, but he barely noticed. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions he'd thought long buried. Back at his office, Aaron found it impossible to focus. The encounter with Lena had shaken him more than he cared to admit. He was just considering calling it a day when his phone rang. It was Hannah. Aaron, are you okay? You sound off. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I ran into Lena today. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Oh, how did that go? About as well as you'd expect, Aaron said wryly. She's very pregnant. Hannah's voice was gentle. And how do you feel about that? Aaron was silent for a long moment. I don't know, he admitted finally. Part of me wants to hate her, to hate that child. But part of you still cares, Hannah finished for him. Yeah, Aaron whispered. I guess I do. The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. Finally, Hannah spoke again. Aaron, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. Are you? Hannah's laugh was soft, a little sad. I'm getting there. It's not easy, but I'm learning to live for myself again. Not for Nolan. Not for revenge. Just for me. Her words struck a chord in Aaron. When was the last time he'd done something purely for himself? Not out of anger or a desire for retribution. Maybe, he said slowly. Maybe it's time I tried that too. As he hung up the phone, Aaron felt something shift inside him. The anger that had been driving him for so long began to ebb, replaced by a tentative hope. Not for reconciliation with Lena, that bridge was well and truly burned, but for a future where he wasn't defined by her betrayal. The next morning, Aaron woke with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. He dressed with care, choosing a suit that made him feel confident and strong. Today was the day he started truly moving forward. His first stop was his lawyer's office. Patricia Hendricks greeted him with her usual shark-like smile. Mr. Carter, what can I do for you today? Aaron took a deep breath. I want to finalize the divorce as quickly and cleanly as possible. Patricia's eyebrows rose. Are you sure? Given the circumstances, we could push for a more favorable settlement. I'm sure, Aaron said firmly. I don't want anything from Lena. I just want this chapter of my life closed. As he signed the final papers, Aaron felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was done. He was free. Leaving the lawyer's office, Aaron found himself walking towards the park where he and Lena had spent so many happy afternoons. But instead of pain, he felt a sense of peace. This place held good memories, and he was tired of letting Lena's betrayal taint them. He sat on their favorite bench, watching as families played and couples strolled by. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to imagine a future one filled with possibility rather than bitterness. His phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. "Dinner tonight? I could use a friend." Aaron smiled, typing back a quick affirmative. As he pocketed his phone, he caught sight of a familiar figure across the park. Lena was there, walking slowly along the path. Her hand rested on her heavily pregnant belly, her face a mask of sadness and resignation. For a moment, their eyes met across the distance. Aaron felt a flicker of the old pain, the old anger. But it was muted now, overshadowed by a new emotion: pity. Lena had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences, just as he was living with his. He gave her a small nod, not of forgiveness, but of acknowledgement. Then he stood and walked away, leaving the past behind him. That evening, as Aaron sat across from Hannah at a cozy restaurant, he felt truly relaxed for the first time in ages. They talked and laughed, sharing stories of their new lives and tentative plans for the future. "You know," Hannah said, taking a sip of her wine, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm almost grateful to Nolan and Lena." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Oh." She nodded. "If they hadn't betrayed us, we'd still be stuck in those unhappy marriages. Now we have a chance at real happiness." Aaron considered her words. She was right, he realized. As painful as the journey had been, it had led him here to a place of strength and self-discovery. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. Hannah's smile was warm as she clinked her glass against his. To new beginnings. As they continued their meal, Aaron felt a sense of anticipation building inside him. The future stretched out before him, full of possibilities. He didn't know where the road would lead, but for the first time in a long time, he was excited to find out. The next morning, Aaron woke to a notification on his phone. It was an email from Lena. "Aaron, I know you probably won't read this, and I don't blame you. But I needed to say it one last time. I'm sorry. For everything. I know sorry doesn't fix what I broke, but I hope someday you can find happiness again. You deserve it. Lena." Aaron stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, with a deep breath, he hit delete. He didn't need Lena's apologies or her well wishes. He was building his own happiness now. As he got ready for work, Aaron caught sight of himself in the mirror. The man looking back at him was different from the one who had discovered Lena's betrayal all those months ago. Stronger, wiser, ready to embrace whatever life had in store. With a confident smile, Aaron grabbed his keys and headed out the door. The sun was shining, a new day was beginning, and he was ready to face it head-on. The story of Lena's betrayal and its aftermath would always be a part of him, but it no longer defined him. Aaron Carter was moving forward, one step at a time, into a future bright with promise. And he wasn't looking back. Colonel James Mitchell had imagined this moment countless times during his 15-month deployment in Afghanistan. In his dreams, he'd pull into the driveway, and Catherine would rush out to meet him, tears of joy streaming down her face. His teenage daughter would follow, and they'd embrace as a family, whole and complete once again. But dreams rarely matched reality in his line of work. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the familiar streets of his suburban neighborhood as he guided his truck around the final corner. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white with anticipation. 15 months of combat operations, 3 men lost under his command, and countless near misses had changed him. He knew that. The question was whether home had changed too. James pulled into his driveway, killing the engine but remaining in his seat for a moment. The 2-story colonial house stood silent, its windows reflecting the dying sunlight. The American flag he'd mounted before deployment still hung proudly by the front door, though the colors had faded slightly. Catherine had promised to replace it if it got too worn, but apparently she hadn't noticed, or hadn't cared. That thought brought a frown to his weathered face. The last few months of communication had been different. Video calls grew shorter, less frequent. Catherine blamed it on a massive merger at her accounting firm. Longer hours, more responsibilities. Their 20th anniversary had passed with just a brief phone call. She'd been in a meeting, she'd said. Couldn't talk long. "Stop it," he muttered to himself, shaking off the doubts. Combat made you paranoid. He knew that better than most. 20 years of marriage deserved more trust than that. James grabbed his duffel bag from the passenger seat and stepped out into the crisp autumn air. The neighborhood was peaceful, almost eerily so, after months of living with the constant background noise of a forward operating base. No distant explosions, no helicopter rotors, no radio chatter. Just the rustle of leaves and the faint sound of someone mowing their lawn a few blocks away. He hadn't told anyone he was coming home early. The official discharge date wasn't for another 2 weeks, but his replacement had arrived sooner than expected, and his commanding officer had approved his early departure. He'd thought about calling ahead, but decided to surprise them instead. Catherine would be home from work by now, and his daughter would be back from school. The familiar weight of his combat boots on the concrete driveway grounded him as he approached the house. Everything looked exactly as he remembered. Catherine's prized rose bushes still meticulously maintained, the basketball hoop over the garage still missing its net. His daughter had been practicing her shots religiously before he left, determined to make varsity. Had she succeeded? He realized with a pang that he didn't know James reached for his keys, the familiar bundle feeling strange after so long. He'd kept them with him throughout deployment, a tangible reminder of the home waiting for him. The house key was worn smooth from years of use, its brass surface reflecting tiny fragments of sunlight. But as he looked up to insert it into the lock, something caught his eye that made his blood run cold. Through the garage's side window, he could see a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz parked inside. His steps faltered, military training kicking in as he processed the scene. Catherine's Honda was parked beside it. He recognized the dent in the rear bumper from her minor accident last year. But that Mercedes, he knew that car. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Last year's company Christmas party, Catherine introducing him to her boss, Robert Maxwell. The man had spent the entire evening talking about his new car, a custom-ordered Mercedes-Benz that cost more than James made in 2 years. "No," he whispered, his voice rough with sudden understanding. The late nights, the missed calls, the distracted conversations. "No, no, no." James moved closer to the garage window, his training taking over as he surveyed the scene. Both vehicles were empty. The house appeared still, but he caught the faint sound of music drifting from an upstairs window. His and Catherine's bedroom window, his hands began to shake not with fear, but with a rage so profound it threatened to overwhelm him. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of deployments, of missing birthdays and anniversaries, of putting his life on the line while she, the toolbox in his truck beckoned to him. James moved with mechanical precision, his muscles operating on autopilot while his mind spun with violent possibilities. The metal bolts felt cold in his palm as he grabbed a handful half-inch steel, heavy enough to do serious damage. He'd used similar bolts to repair equipment in the field, but now they would serve a different purpose. The garage door opener felt like a detonator in his hand as he pressed it. The door rose with agonizing slowness, each inch revealing more of the Mercedes' pristine black paint. James approached it like he would have suspected IED, careful, calculating, fully aware of the destruction he was about to unleash. The hood release was easy to find. He'd learned about luxury cars during his brief stint as a mechanic before joining the military. The hood opened with a soft click that seemed to echo in the enclosed space. The engine compartment was immaculate German engineering at its finest. James held the first bolt over it, suspended between action and consequence that a memory flashed through his mind. Robert Maxwell at the Christmas party, one arm draped possessively over the car's hood. "You see, Colonel," he'd said, his voice dripping with condescension, "when you invest in quality, it shows." The same way he'd looked at Catherine throughout the evening. With that proprietary gleam in his eyes, James dropped the first bolt. It struck something deep in the engine with a satisfying ping. Then another, and another. Each one felt like justice, like returning just a fraction of the pain now burning through his chest. He didn't allow himself to smile. This wasn't about pleasure. This was about consequences. The last bolt fell, just as the music upstairs changed to something slower, more intimate. James closed the hood with deliberate gentleness, unwilling to alert them. "Not yet." The garage door descended behind him as he moved toward the side entrance, his mind already mapping out his next moves, the gun safe in his study, the magnum within it. The stairs leading up to his bedroom, James inserted his key into the side door, the metallic scrape of tumblers falling into place, sounding like the bolt of a rifle being drawn back. The war he'd left behind in Afghanistan was over, and a new one was about to begin. The side door opened silently into the kitchen. James had always kept the hinges well-oiled, a habit from his first deployment when Catherine complained about them waking their daughter. The familiar scent of home hit him like a physical blow, lavender air freshener, coffee from the morning's brew, and underneath it all, Catherine's perfume, Chanel No. 5, the same scent he'd given her for their 15th anniversary. James moved through the kitchen with the measured precision of a combat veteran, his boots ghosting across the tile floor. Everything looked exactly as it had during their last video call 3 days ago. Dishes drying in the rack, his daughter's physics textbook on the counter, Catherine's coffee mug in the sink. The normality of it all made his stomach turn. How many mornings had Maxwell sat at their kitchen island, drinking coffee from James's cups, plotting to steal his life? The hallway stretched before him, leading past the living room toward his study. Family photos lined the walls. Their wedding day, his daughter's first day of school, Catherine's graduation from accounting school. He'd paid for that degree with combat pay from Iraq, proud to help his wife achieve her dreams. Now those dreams included destroying everything they'd built together. His study door was closed, just as he'd left it 15 months ago. The room had been his sanctuary, a place where he could decompress after difficult missions or work on battalion paperwork. Catherine rarely entered it. She said the military memorabilia made her uncomfortable. Now he wondered if it had been guilt rather than discomfort keeping her away. The key to the study was on his main ring, smaller than the others. The lock turned with a soft click, and James slipped inside, closing the door behind him. The room smelled of leather and gun oil. He taught his daughter proper weapon maintenance before deploying, making her promise to clean his collection monthly. By the spotless condition of the display cases, she kept that promise. His gun safe stood in the corner, a solid piece of American steel that had cost him a month's salary. The combination came automatically. 0-7-1-5, their wedding date. The irony of using that number now made his jaw clench. The mechanism released with a heavy thunk, and the door swung open to reveal his private arsenal. The magnum rested in its customized foam cradle, gleaming under the study's soft lighting. James lifted it with reverent familiarity, checking the chamber in action out of habit. His daughter had maintained this weapon too. The barrel was spotless, the action smooth. He bought it after his third deployment, telling Catherine it was for home protection. In 15 years, he'd never imagined using it against a threat from within. The weight of the loaded weapon centered him as years of military training took over. 6 rounds in the cylinder, more than enough. The gun oil's sharp scent filled his nostrils as he verified the sights, muscle memory from countless range sessions guiding his movements. This weapon had been his insurance policy, his guarantee that he could protect his family from any threat. But how do you protect your family when the threat comes from the person you trusted most? James moved back into the hallway, the magnum held low against his thigh, proper room-clearing posture. The sounds from upstairs had grown more distinct. Soft music, occasional laughter, the creak of bed springs that he refused to think about. Each sound was a nail in the coffin of his marriage. Each moment another betrayal to fuel his rage. The stairs lay ahead, 15 steps between him and the destruction of everything he believed in. His military training screamed at him to maintain tactical awareness. But another voice, darker, more primal, urged him to charge up those stairs and unleash 20 years of pent-up violence. His boot touched the first step, and the old wood groaned softly beneath his weight. The sound transported him back to Afghanistan, to midnight raids and compound clearances. But this was no Taliban stronghold. This was his home, and the enemy wasn't some faceless insurgent. It was the woman who'd promised to love him until death did them part. Second step. Third, each one bringing him closer to a confrontation that would end in blood or broken lives or both. His finger rested beside the trigger guard, not on a proper trigger discipline ingrained by decades of training. Even now, with rage burning through his veins like napalm, Those fundamental skills held firm. Fourth step. Fifth, the music changed upstairs, something slower, more intimate. His grip tightened on the Magnum's textured handle, knuckles white with controlled fury. The tactical part of his mind cataloged his advantages: surprise, superior position, combat experience. The husband part of his mind cataloged betrayals: missed calls, hollow excuses, fading intimacy. Sixth step. Seventh, movement in his peripheral vision. A shadow passing through the living room below. James froze, every muscle locked in combat readiness. Another shadow, smaller this time, moving with purpose toward the stairs that a floorboard creaked behind him. "Dad!" The voice stopped him cold. His daughter's voice, thick with emotion but steady as a combat veteran's. James turned slowly, the Magnum still held low, and found her standing at the base of the stairs. At 16, she was the spitting image of Catherine at that age, but her eyes were all his. And right now, they held a darkness he recognized from his own reflection. "Don't," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of secrets. "Don't go up there. Not yet." "Move aside," James ordered, his voice barely recognizable even to himself. The rage that had driven him up the stairs now warred with his instinct to protect his daughter from what was happening above them. She shook her head, taking another step forward. In the dim hallway light, he could see tears threatening to spill from her eyes, but her jaw was set with determination. "No, you need to listen to me first. I know what's happening up there. I've known for months." The words hit him like physical blows, each one driving the air from his lungs. "Months." The Magnum trembled in his grip as the implications sank in. His daughter had been carrying this burden alone while he was halfway around the world. "Yes." Her voice cracked slightly, but she steadied it with visible effort. "And I have a plan. A better plan than whatever you're thinking about doing right now. One that will destroy him completely." James's grip tightened on the Magnum as another laugh drifted down from upstairs. "You're 16. You don't understand what's happening here. I understand perfectly." She cut him off, her voice hardening to match his own. "I understand that if you go up there right now, you'll end up in prison. And then what happens to me?" Her eyes, so much like his own, bored into him. "I'll be stuck with them. Is that what you want?" The tactical logic of her words penetrated the red haze of his rage. He'd seen too many good soldiers throw their lives away in moments of passion. But this was different. This was his home, his wife. "Let me show you what I've gathered," she pressed, seeing his hesitation. "Please, Dad. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. After that, if you still want to go up there..." She left the sentence hanging. Heavy with implication, the gun trembled in his grip as he stared at his daughter. The sounds from upstairs had grown more distinct. Another laugh, the creak of bed springs, the soft murmur of voices. His finger twitched toward the trigger. "Dad?" Her voice cracked again, real fear seeping through her controlled facade. "Please. Trust me." Something in her tone reached through the fog of his rage. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just his little girl, but a young woman with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. She'd been dealing with this alone, carrying this knowledge while he was thousands of miles away, fighting someone else's war while her own world fell apart. 5 minutes, he growled, lowering the gun to his side. Relief flooded her features, but she didn't waste time celebrating the victory. "My room. I'll show you everything." James followed her down the hall, each step away from the stairs requiring monumental effort. Her room was exactly as he remembered from their video calls. Pale blue walls covered in band posters, desk cluttered with schoolwork and college brochures. But she went straight to her closet, pushing aside hanging clothes to reveal a laptop connected to an external hard drive. "I started documenting everything 3 months ago," she explained, her voice taking on a clinical tone despite the slight tremor in her hands. "At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Mom was working late more often, always with him. Then I noticed little things. New jewelry she couldn't explain, secret phone calls, text messages she'd delete right after reading." She opened the laptop, typing rapidly. The screen cast a blue glow across her face, highlighting the dark circles under her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. How many nights had she stayed up, collecting evidence while pretending everything was normal? I installed tracking software on her phone when she was sleeping. She continued, pulling up files with practiced efficiency. Recorded their conversations when they thought I wasn't home. But it's more than just the affair, Dad. They're planning something bigger. James stared at the screen as she opened file after file, dozens of them. Audio recordings, text message logs, photos taken through car windows showing Catherine and Robert at various restaurants and hotels. His daughter had compiled a surveillance dossier that would have impressed his intelligence officers. "This is from last week," she said, clicking on an audio file. Catherine's voice filled the room, followed by Robert's deeper tones. They were discussing money, large sums of it, being moved between accounts that shouldn't exist. "They're embezzling," his daughter explained, her voice hardening. "I've got proof of that, too. Bank statements, emails, everything. He's been stealing from the company for months, and Mom's helping him hide it." She pulled up spreadsheets filled with numbers that told a story of systematic theft. "They're planning to take the money and run. Start a new life somewhere else." James sank in her desk chair, the magnum heavy in his lap. The betrayal he'd discovered upstairs suddenly seemed shallow compared to the depths his daughter was revealing. This wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy that threatened to destroy not just his marriage, but potentially dozens of lives affected by the theft. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. She met his gaze steadily. "Because I needed more evidence. And because I knew what you'd do if I told you while you were deployed. You'd have come home guns blazing, and they would have covered their tracks." She gestured at the screen. "This way, we have everything we need to destroy them both. Legally. Completely. No prison time for you. No mercy for them. What exactly are you proposing?" A cold smile crossed her face, an expression no 16-year-old should know how to make. "First, we keep collecting evidence. Every meeting, every phone call, every penny they steal. Then, when we have enough, we don't just expose the affair. We expose everything. To the company board, to the police, to their families." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper despite the music still playing upstairs. "We take everything from them, Dad, just like they try to take everything from us." James stared at his daughter, seeing shadows of himself in her calculated rage. The soldier in him recognized a well-planned operation when he saw one. The father in him grieved that she'd had to become this tactical at such a young age. But there was pride, too, pride in her strength, her intelligence, her refusal to be a victim. The sounds from upstairs continued, oblivious to the conspiracy being formed below. James's finger traced the trigger guard of the Magnum as he weighed his options. The immediate satisfaction of confrontation versus the total destruction his daughter proposed. "How long?" he asked finally. "A month. Maybe 2. I'm close to accessing their private email accounts. Once I have those..." She trailed off as footsteps creaked overhead. "They can't know you're home yet. We need them to feel safe, to keep making mistakes." James stood, military training taking over as he assessed the tactical situation. "I'll get a hotel room, continue monitoring them, but I want daily reports, and if anything changes, I'll call you immediately," she promised. "And Dad, thank you for trusting me." He pulled her into a fierce hug, feeling her trembling against him. For a moment, she wasn't the calculating strategist who just laid out a plan for systematic destruction. She was just his little girl, hurt and angry, and trying to protect what was left of their family. "I'm here now," he whispered into her hair. "We'll make them pay. Together." She nodded against his chest, then pulled back, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "You should go. They usually finish around 6, and Mom will be starting dinner soon." James holstered the Magnum, his rage now transformed into something colder, more focused. He looked at his daughter, this warrior he'd somehow raised, and saw the next several weeks stretched out before them like a campaign map. Territory to take, enemies to destroy, a war to be won not with bullets, but with patience and precision. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. "Not of what you had to do, but of how you handled it." She gave him a sad smile. "I learned from the best, Dad. Now go. I'll call you tonight with an update." James slipped out of the house as quietly as he'd entered, the weight of betrayal on his shoulders matched only by the pride in his daughter's strength. As he drove away, he glanced in his rearview mirror at the house that was no longer his home. The Mercedes was still in the garage, its engine compartment now laden with his first act of revenge. But that was just the beginning. The war was about to begin, and this time, he had the perfect ally. The Hampton Inn's bland decor matched James's mood as he spread surveillance photos across the queen-size bed. 3 days had passed since his aborted homecoming, and each image told a story of betrayal that made his jaw clench. His daughter hadn't been exaggerating about her evidence-gathering skills. The hotel room phone rang, breaking his concentration. Their agreed-upon signal. 2 rings, hang up, call back. He waited, counting seconds until it rang again. Secure? He answered, falling back on military protocol. Clear. His daughter's voice came through. Mom just left for dinner with the girls. Guess whose Mercedes just happened to pick her up? James checked his watch. 7:15 p.m. Tell me. They're getting sloppy, she said, keyboard clicks punctuating her words. Maxwell didn't even park around the corner this time. Pulled right into the driveway like he owned the place. A pause, which, according to these emails I just accessed, he might be planning to do literally. Explain. Mom's been looking at real estate listings. High-end properties in the Cayman Islands. And get this, she's been doing it from her work computer, logging in through Maxwell's credentials. James moved to his laptop, opening the secure email account they'd set up. Send me everything. Already did. Check attachment 3. It's their correspondence with an offshore bank. They've been moving company funds through a shell corporation. More typing. Maxwell's getting desperate. The quarterly audit is coming up, and there's a lot of money he can't explain. How much are we talking about? At least 4 million, maybe more. I'm still decrypting some of their communications, but she broke off suddenly. Hold on. Something's happening. James straightened, instantly alert. Talk to me. Maxwell's wife just pulled up next door. She's heading for our house. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She looks pissed. Can you get audio? Better. I installed a camera in the portico last week. Sending you the live feed now. James's laptop pinged with a new notification. The video quality was impressive. His daughter hadn't skimped on equipment. Maxwell's wife, Patricia, stood at their front door, hammer-straight posture radiating upper-class fury. The door opened, revealing Catherine in casual clothes, surprise evident on her face. Patricia, I wasn't expecting. Save it. Patricia's voice came through clearly. We need to talk about these. She thrust a manila envelope forward. Catherine took it, hands visibly shaking as she withdrew several photographs. Oh my God, his daughter whispered over the phone. Those are the ones I sent her yesterday. James felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. You didn't tell me about that. Tactical surprise. I knew she'd confront Mom directly. Her social media is full of posts about confronting problems head-on. But watch this part. On screen, Catherine was stammering denials. These aren't. I mean, they could be anyone. They're dated, Catherine. And time-stamped. You and my husband at the Gateway Hotel. The Riverside Restaurant. Our vacation home in Aspen. Patricia's voice could have frozen hell. I especially enjoyed the ones showing you entering our house when I was at my mother's funeral. James's free hand clenched into a fist. He hadn't known about that particular betrayal. I can explain, Catherine began, but Patricia cut her off. No need. Robert already did. Quite thoroughly, after I showed him copies. A cold smile. He claims you've been stalking him. That you're obsessed, unstable. He's filing a restraining order. He's what? Catherine's composure cracked. But we've been planning, he said we would. Planning what? Exactly? Patricia leaned forward. Because my lawyer would love to hear about any plans you and my husband have been making. On the phone, his daughter let out a low whistle. Maxwell threw her under the bus. Just like I predicted. You knew he would do this? Men like him always save themselves first. That's why I sent the photos to Patricia instead of the board. She'll do our work for us, digging into every aspect of his life, including the finances. James watched as Catherine crumpled under Patricia's relentless questioning. Every denial dug her deeper. Every explanation exposed another lie. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare, and his daughter had orchestrated it perfectly. There's more, she said as the confrontation on screen wound down. While Mom's distracted, I'm copying her entire hard drive. The program just found something interesting in her deleted files. Want to hear about the fake passports they ordered? James settled into his chair, eyes locked on the feed where Patricia was delivering what appeared to be a final, devastating verbal blow to Catherine's composure. Tell me everything. Start with the passports. Better idea. I'll bring the files to you. Mom will be a mess after this. Probably call Maxwell. Which means I have at least 2 hours before she remembers I exist. Keys jangled in the background. Meet me at that diner you liked? The one with the good pie. James checked his weapon out of habit. 20 minutes. And daughter? Yeah. Good work on this. Your timing was perfect. He could hear the smile in her voice. I learned from the best, remember? See you soon. The call ended and James took one last look at the video feed. Catherine had collapsed onto the porch swing, head in her hands, while Patricia's BMW purred away into the gathering darkness. It should have given him satisfaction, seeing his wife's carefully constructed lies beginning to unravel. Instead, he felt only a cold, tactical certainty. This was just the first domino. The real devastation was still to come. He grabbed his jacket and keys, the familiar weight of the Magnum under his arm a reminder of how differently this could have gone. His daughter's way was better. Death was too quick, too merciful. Catherine and Maxwell would live to see everything they'd built together torn down. Piece by piece, the war was escalating, and they didn't even know they were under attack. Lou's Diner hadn't changed in 15 months. The same neon sign buzzed in the window, the same smell of coffee and apple pie filled the air, and the same vinyl booths squeaked under James's weight as he slid into his usual corner spot. He'd chosen the seat facing the door out of habit, giving him clear sight lines to all entries and exits. The waitress recognized him immediately. Colonel, you're back. Evening, Rita. He managed a thin smile. Coffee, black, and a slice of apple pie. She already had her pen ready. 2 slices, he corrected. Expecting company. Rita's eyes twinkled. Your girl coming by? Haven't seen her in here for months. Not since. She trailed off, suddenly uncertain. Not since Catherine started telling people I'd requested a divorce from overseas. James finished for her, keeping his voice neutral. The lie had clearly made its rounds in the community. Rita's face darkened. Never believed that for a minute. You two were always so. She stopped as the diner's bell chimed. Well, look who it is. His daughter entered, laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She'd changed clothes since the video feed, trading house clothes for jeans and a dark hoodie. Her eyes scanned the diner automatically, a habit she'd picked up from him, before heading to their booth. Hi, Rita, she smiled warmly. How's Tommy doing at college? Dean's List again. Rita beamed. Those math tutorials you gave him really paid off. She headed off to get their coffee, leaving them alone, making friends with the locals. James asked quietly. His daughter pulled out her laptop. Information comes from everywhere, Dad. Rita's son works part-time at Maxwell's country club. The stuff he overhears at the caddy shack. She smiled. Let's just say golf brings out people's true colors. The laptop booted up as Rita returned with their coffee and pie. They waited until she was safely out of earshot before continuing. Show me what you found, James said. Taking a sip of the bitter coffee, his daughter turned the screen toward him. These were deep in Mom's deleted files. Passport applications, but not normal ones. She pulled up several documents. Look at the names. James studied the forms. Catherine Maxwell, Robert and Catherine Maxwell, dated 3 weeks ago. They're planning to leave the country as husband and wife. She pulled up another document. And look at this bank accounts in both names, already set up in Grand Cayman. They've been planning this for months. The money's already there. Some of it. They've been moving it in chunks to avoid detection. But here's where it gets interesting. She opened a spreadsheet. These transfers don't match the company's books. Maxwell's been stealing way more than we thought. James leaned forward, studying the numbers. How much more? According to this, close to 12 million. He's been cooking the books for years, way before Mom got involved. But he needed her help to move the bigger amounts. She took a bite of pie, chewing thoughtfully. That's probably how it started. He needed an accounting expert, someone who could hide the money, and found a willing accomplice. James finished, his voice hard. What's our next move? She pulled out a USB drive. Remember that backup I made of Mom's computer? Found something else, emails between them discussing the company's server security. Specifically, the gaps in it. A cold smile. Maxwell's been logging in remotely, accessing restricted files. But he's not as tech-savvy as he thinks. Every login leaves a trace. You can track them? Better. I can replicate them. Make it look like he's been accessing accounts he shouldn't. Downloading files above his clearance level. She lowered her voice. The company handles sensitive financial data for some major clients. The kind of clients who get really upset about security breaches. James watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. She developed skills that would impress his military intelligence officers. But the cost to her innocence troubled him. You're sure this can't be traced back to you? Positive. I'm bouncing everything through Maxwell's own credentials. As far as the system knows, he's just getting sloppy with his late-night logins. She took another bite of pie. Besides, after Patricia's visit tonight, security will already be looking at him sideways. Speaking of Patricia, James set his coffee down. That was a risk, sending her those photos. A calculated one. Maxwell's predictable. He always sacrifices others to save himself. By throwing Mom under the bus, he's just proved to Patricia that the photos are real. She grinned. And guess who sits on the company's audit committee? James raised an eyebrow. Patricia, chair of the committee, has been for 3 years. Mom didn't know that Maxwell kept their work lives separate. But now, she closed the laptop. Now Patricia's going to tear through every financial document with a fine-toothed comb. And she has the authority to do it. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Her expression sobered. Almost everything. There's one wild card we need to discuss. She pulled out her phone, showing him a text message. Mom's trying to reach you. Wants to explain before you hear things from other people. James felt his jaw clench. She knows I'm back? Not yet. This is preemptive damage control. After Patricia's visit, she's scared. Probably thinks the photos will get around town. She studied him carefully. What do you want to do? James stared at his empty coffee cup, considering their options. Can you get into her phone? Read her messages with Maxwell? Already done. He's barely responding to her. Told her to stop contacting him until things cooled down. She scoffed. He's trying to create distance, make her look like the aggressor. Classic abuser tactic. And the passports? Still in process. Takes time to create that kind of documentation, even through illegal channels. She hesitated. Dad, when the time comes, what exactly are we going to do with all this evidence? James looked at his daughter, really looked at her. Behind the tactical brilliance and cold calculation, he could still see the little girl who used to run to him for protection. Now she was protecting him, in her own way. We're going to destroy them, he said quietly. Not just their reputations or their freedom. Everything. The money, the relationships, the backup plans. By the time we're done, they won't have a single refuge left. She nodded slowly. And Mom, when she tries to contact you, let her stew for now. The more desperate she gets, the more mistakes she'll make. He reached across the table, squeezing her hand. You've done good work, but I need you to be careful. These people are cornered animals now. They're going to get dangerous. I know. That's why I installed new locks on my bedroom door. And she reached into her bag, pulling out a small canister. Bought this today, just in case. James recognized the pepper spray immediately. Another piece of innocence lost. Show me how you hold it, he said, shifting into instructor mode. If she needed to be prepared, he'd make damn sure she was prepared right. They spent the next hour going over basic self-defense, speaking in low voices as the diner emptied out. James taught her the same techniques he'd taught his soldiers. How to be aware of surroundings, how to identify threats, how to escape bad situations. She absorbed it all with the same intensity she brought to her surveillance work. Finally, as Rita was stacking chairs on tables, they gathered their things to leave. Out in the parking lot, his daughter hesitated by her car. Dad, thanks for trusting me with all this. I know it's not how you wanted to handle things. James pulled her into a tight hug. You've made me proud, not of what you had to do, but how well you've done it. He pulled back, looking her in the eye. But remember, you're still my daughter first, operative second. If anything feels wrong, you call me immediately. Clear? Crystal. She managed a small smile. I'll send you the server access data tonight. Watch your secure email. As she drove away, James watched until her taillights disappeared around the corner. Then he pulled out his phone, looking at Catherine's message again. 3 attempts to contact him in the past hour, that he deleted them all without reading them. Let her worry. Let her fear. Let her wonder when and how her carefully constructed world would come crashing down. The time for confrontation would come. But first, they had to spring the trap. 1 week after the diner meeting, James sat in his hotel room, watching multiple laptop screens, each displaying a different feed. His daughter's surveillance network had grown impressive. The main screen showed Maxwell's office, where the man himself was having what appeared to be a heated phone conversation. His daughter's voice came through his earpiece. "You getting this?" "Crystal clear," James replied, adjusting the volume. What triggered him? Patricia just called an emergency board meeting. Apparently, she's found some concerning irregularities in the quarterly audit. He could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Maxwell's trying to reach Mom, but she's not answering. Where is she? Having a breakdown in her office. Here, let me switch your feed. The screen changed to show Catherine's office. She sat at her desk, makeup smeared from crying, staring at her phone. Papers were scattered everywhere, and her computer screen showed multiple email warnings about unauthorized access attempts. The IT department locked her out an hour ago, his daughter explained. Standard procedure when they suspect account compromise. But with her credentials flagged, they're going to start looking at every file she's touched in the last year. How many offshore transfers will that expose? All of them. I made sure the audit trail was crystal clear. A pause. Oh, this is good. Maxwell's secretary just walked in with security. They're escorting him out of the building. James switched feeds to watch Maxwell's walk of shame. The man's usual confident stride was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. Security flanked him closely as employees peeked out of their offices to watch. "Dad!" His daughter's voice had an edge of concern. "We've got movement at the house. Maxwell's heading there. You're clear?" At Rita's diner doing homework. Mom's still at the office. Keys clacked in the background. But Maxwell looks unstable. "Should I call the police?" James was already moving, checking his Magnum. "No, I'll handle this. Keep monitoring and record everything." "Be careful," she warned. "He's been drinking. I can see the bottles in his car." Even better, James headed for his truck. A drunk man makes mistakes. Keep your channel open. The drive to his house took 12 minutes. He parked a block away, approaching on foot just as Maxwell's Mercedes pulled up. The man stumbled out, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face flushed with alcohol and rage. "Catherine!" Maxwell shouted, pounding on the front door. "I know you did this. You and your little bitch of a daughter." James felt his trigger finger twitch, but held position. Evidence first. Revenge second. "You ruined everything." Maxwell continued to shout, pulling out his phone. "Pick up, damn you. You think you can destroy me? I'll show you destruction." James's earpiece crackled. "Dad, he's forwarding emails to himself. Looks like, oh shit. Talk to me." He's sending proof that Mom was behind the embezzlement, setting her up to take all the blame. Her voice hardened. He's going to try to pin everything on her. James watched as Maxwell stalked back to his car, still shouting into his phone. "Perfect. Let him dig himself deeper. You getting all this?" "Every word," his daughter confirmed. And yes, he just logged into the company server from his phone, using Mom's stolen credentials. IT will have a record of that. Maxwell was back at the door, this time with a bottle in his hand. "You want to play games?" he slurred. "I've got records of everything, Catherine. Every transfer, every meeting, every time you spread your legs to earn your share." The bottle crashed against the door, glass shattering across the porch. James had seen enough. Time to introduce himself to his wife's lover. He approached silently from behind, combat boots silent on the grass. Maxwell didn't hear him until it was too late. "Problems with the door, Robert?" Maxwell spun, nearly falling. His eyes widened as he recognized James. "Colonel? You're not due back. Change of plans?" James kept his voice conversational even as he moved to cut off Maxwell's escape route. Thought I'd surprise my wife. Seems I'm not the only one with surprises. Listen, Maxwell raised his hands, backing away. Whatever Catherine told you, she's lying. She's been unstable, obsessed. These accusations she's making, you mean the ones you just screamed across my front lawn? James stepped closer. The part about her spreading her legs? Or the part about the transfers? Maxwell's back hit his car. I can explain. To who? The board? The police? James smiled coldly. Your wife. My wife. Maxwell's face went pale. What does Patricia have to do with? She's very thorough, isn't she? Especially when she's angry. James was close enough now to smell the alcohol on Maxwell's breath. Did you really think those photos appeared out of nowhere? Understanding dawned in Maxwell's bloodshot eyes. You've been? Watching? Planning? Learning all your dirty little secrets? James leaned in. Welcome to war, Robert. You're not very good at it. Maxwell's face twisted with drunken courage. You think you can threaten me? I'm Robert Maxwell. I've got money connections. Not anymore. James's voice could have frozen hell. Check your accounts? Maxwell fumbled for his phone, hands shaking as he pulled up his banking app. His face went from red to white to green as he scrolled. That's impossible. These accounts were secure. Hidden. Nothing's hidden from people who know where to look. James straightened up. You should go home, Robert. Patricia's waiting. Something about divorce papers and a forensic accountant. You son of a... Maxwell swung wildly, the punch telegraphed by decades of privileged living. James stepped aside easily, letting the man's momentum carry him face first into his own car. Dad! His daughter's voice was tense in his ear. Mom just left the office. She's heading home. Perfect timing. James looked down at Maxwell, who was holding his bloodied nose. Looks like the gang's all here, ready to record their reunion. All cameras active. Audio crystal clear. A pause. Dad? Make him hurt. James watched Maxwell struggle to his feet, car keys fumbling in his shaking hands. Already done, sweetheart. Already done. Catherine's Honda appeared at the end of the street just as Maxwell managed to get his car door open. James stepped back into the shadows, wanting to watch this play out naturally. The look on Catherine's face as she pulled up to find her lover bleeding in her driveway was almost worth the price of admission, almost. Robert? She rushed from her car. Oh my God. What happened to you? Why are you here? What happened? Maxwell's laugh was borderline hysterical. What happened is you and your psychotic family destroyed me. Look at my accounts. Look at what they did. Catherine pulled out her phone, then stared in horror. These are our escape funds. Robert, where's the money? Ask your husband. Maxwell shouted, spraying blood. Ask your precious daughter. They did this. They set us up. My husband? Catherine went pale. James is in Afghanistan. He's not due back for 2 weeks. James stepped into the light. Surprise. Catherine stumbled backward, her face draining of color. James? How? When did you get back? He advanced slowly, each step measured and deliberate. About the same time you were planning your new life in the Caymans. How's that working out for you? Maxwell tried to straighten himself, blood still dripping from his nose. Now listen here, Colonel. Shut up, Robert. James didn't even look at him. The adults are talking. James, Catherine's voice quivered as she tried to regain composure. Whatever you think is happening, I can explain everything. Explain? James's laugh was cold enough to frost the air. Like you explained to Patricia an hour ago? Or like Robert here explained to the board before security walked him out? Catherine's eyes darted between them. The board? Robert, what is he talking about? Your wife's been busy, James told Maxwell, showing those photos to all sorts of interesting people. Tell me, Robert, how many members of your country club wives group has Patricia called so far? Maxwell slumped against his car. You sent those photos to Patricia? Actually, James smiled. That was our daughter's idea. She's got quite a talent for timing, doesn't she? Our daughter. Catherine's voice rose an octave. What have you done to her? James's expression hardened. What have I done? That's rich coming from the woman who made her watch this circus for months. Did you think she wouldn't notice? that she wouldn't figure it out. She's just a child. Catherine protested. A child who's smarter than both of you combined. James pulled out his phone. Want to see what else she noticed? The late-night meetings? The offshore accounts? The fake passports? Maxwell lurched forward. You're bluffing. Robert Maxwell and Catherine Maxwell. James read from his screen. How romantic. Planning to start your new life together with stolen money. Tell me, Robert, does Patricia know about the house you bought in her name? The one you were planning to sell to fund your escape? That's... Maxwell swayed on his feet. That's confidential information. Not anymore. James turned to Catherine. Your boyfriend's been busy. Already trying to pin everything on you. The embezzlement, the fake accounts, all of it. Want to read his emails from the last hour? Catherine spun to face Maxwell. You wouldn't, Catherine, he's lying. Maxwell stammered. We're in this together, remember? Everything we planned was recorded, James finished. Every meeting, every phone call, every time you used her to cover your tracks. He stepped closer to Catherine. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That our daughter wouldn't tell me everything? James, please. Catherine reached for him. We can talk about this. Work something out. He caught her wrist before she could touch him. Like you work things out in our bed while I was dodging bullets? Or like you work things out with company money while Robert here promised you paradise? Dad! His daughter's voice came through his earpiece. Mom's phone is blowing up. The board just sent her termination notice. And, oh, this is good. The FBI just arrived at Maxwell's house. James released Catherine's wrist. Right on schedule. You might want to check your email, dear. Seems your services are no longer required at the firm. Catherine fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. Her face crumpled as she read the message. No, this can't be happening. Robert, do something. But Maxwell was already backing toward his car. I need to get home. Patricia, the FBI, this is all a mistake. The only mistake, James said quietly, was thinking you could take what's mine without consequences. Maxwell practically fell into his Mercedes, the engine roaring to life. He peeled out of the driveway, leaving Catherine standing alone in the gathering darkness. James, she whispered, what have you done? Me. He smiled coldly. I just got home early. You're the one who's been busy. He checked his watch. By the way, you might want to pack a bag. When the FBI finishes with Robert's house, guess where they're coming next? Catherine's legs gave out, and she sank to the driveway. Our daughter. She helped you do this? She did more than help. This whole operation was her plan. Pride crept into his voice. Turns out she inherited my tactical thinking and your attention to detail. Bad combination for anyone who crosses her. I never meant to hurt her, Catherine whispered. Really? James's voice turned savage. You brought your lover into our home. Made her lie to me during video calls. Left her alone while you played house with Robert. What exactly did you think you were doing? Headlights appeared at the end of the street. 2 cars, moving with purpose. Right on time, James said. Federal agents are very prompt, aren't they? James, please. Catherine scrambled to her feet. Don't let them take me. We can work this out, fix things. Fix things? He stepped back as the FBI vehicles pulled up. Like you fixed the company books? Or like Robert just fixed it so you'll take all the blame? Sir? An agent approached, badge out. We need to ask your wife some questions. James nodded. Of course. She's all yours. I'm sure she has plenty to say about Robert Maxwell's accounting practices. James! Catherine called as the agents led her toward their car. Please, think about our daughter. I am thinking about her, he replied coldly. I'm thinking about every night she cried herself to sleep while you were with him. Every lie she had to tell to cover for you. Every moment you stole from her childhood. He watched as they put Catherine in the back of their vehicle, her mascara leaving black trails down her cheeks. Dad! His daughter's voice was soft in his ear. You okay? James waited until the FBI cars disappeared around the corner before responding. You got everything recorded? Full audio and video. Uploaded to secure servers. A pause. Maxwell just got arrested at his house. He's telling them everything. Trying to make a deal. Let him talk. James stared at the empty driveway where his life had imploded. The more he says, the deeper they both sink. What happens now? James pulled out his keys, not to the hotel, but to their house. His house now. Now? Now we go home. There's a lot of cleaning to do. Dad. Her voice cracked slightly. Did we do the right thing? James thought about the look on Catherine's face when she realized her daughter had orchestrated her downfall. The way Maxwell had tried to abandon her at the first sign of trouble. The years of lies and betrayal exposed in one spectacular evening. The right thing? He climbed the porch steps, stepping over broken glass from Maxwell's bottle. No, sweetheart. We didn't do the right thing. We did the necessary thing. And we're not done yet. Because destroying their lives wasn't enough. Taking their money wasn't enough. Even prison wasn't enough. They needed to understand exactly what they'd lost. Who they betrayed, and this was just the beginning. At 3 in the morning, James sat in his home office, surrounded by the wreckage of his former life. He'd spent hours going through drawers and cabinets, finding evidence of Catherine's betrayal in every corner. Credit card statements showing dinners he hadn't attended. Hotel receipts from weekends he'd been deployed. Anniversary gifts he hadn't given. The door creaked open, and his daughter patted in, 2 steaming mugs in her hands. Thought you might need this. James accepted the coffee, noticing she'd made it exactly as he liked. Black, no sugar. Like Catherine had never bothered to remember. You should be sleeping. Too wound up. She settled into the leather chair across from his desk, pulling her knees up to her chest. In the dim lamplight, she looked younger than she had in months. Maxwell still singing to the FBI. His lawyers trying to cut a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Let him talk. James took a sip of coffee. The more he implicates himself, the better our civil case becomes. Already handled. She pulled out her phone. I sent everything to Uncle Mike an hour ago. He says as your lawyer, he can file for divorce first thing in the morning. Full documentation of infidelity, financial fraud, everything. James studied his daughter over the rim of his mug. You've been busy. Couldn't sleep anyway. She managed a small smile. Besides, Mom's not the only one who knows how to work late hours. The bitter echo of Catherine's excuse made James's jaw clench. Have you heard from her? She tried calling twice from the FBI office. I blocked her number. Her voice hardened. She doesn't get to play the concerned mother now. No, she doesn't. James set down his coffee. But this isn't over. Once the shock wears off, they'll both start looking for ways to minimize the damage. We need to be ready. His daughter nodded, pulling up more files on her phone. Already on it. I've been monitoring their emergency contacts. Maxwell's reached out to 3 different lawyers, but no one's taking his calls. Apparently, Patricia's family has some serious pull in the legal community. And Catherine? Trying to access her private accounts. The ones she thought I didn't know about. A cold smile crossed her face. Surprise, Mom. Those are frozen too. James felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She met his gaze steadily. After everything they did, it's not about enjoyment. James stood, moving to the window. The street outside was quiet, but police tape still fluttered around Maxwell's abandoned Mercedes. It's about justice. Consequences. Same thing. She joined him at the window. They thought they were so clever. Playing their games, making their plans. They never even considered someone might be watching. That's the problem with people like them, James said quietly. They think they're the only ones capable of deception. That loyalty is something to be used, not earned. Speaking of loyalty, his daughter hesitated. Rita called while you were dealing with the FBI. The whole town's talking. People are choosing sides. Let them talk. James turned to face her. You okay with that? It's going to get worse before it gets better. She straightened her spine, looking more like a soldier than a teenager. I've been handling worse for months. Besides, the people who matter already know the truth. Rita's planning to ban Maxwell from the diner. James couldn't help but smile. Small-town justice? The best kind. She checked her phone again. Oh, this is interesting. Maxwell's company stock just tanked in after-hours trading. Someone leaked the FBI investigation to the financial press. Someone? Anonymous source? She tried to look innocent and failed. The same anonymous source might have suggested looking into Maxwell's previous company. The one that mysteriously went bankrupt after he left with a golden parachute. James shook his head in amazement. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Almost. Her expression turned serious. There's one thing we still need to discuss. Mom's family. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Catherine's wealthy parents had never approved of James, a mere soldier who'd seduced their daughter. They tried to buy him off before the wedding, offering a substantial sum to walk away. They'll try to intervene, he said grimly. Already happening. Grandma called while you were out. Said they're flying in tomorrow. She gripped her phone tighter. They think they can fix this with money. Like always. Can they? Not this time. She held up her phone, showing him an email chain. See these transfers? The ones Mom helped hide? Some of that money came from their family foundation. When the FBI traces it, James let out a low whistle. You're burning everyone. They chose their side years ago. Her voice was pure ice. Remember my 13th birthday? When they forgot to invite you to their country club celebration? Said it was members only? I remember. So do I. She squared her shoulders. They wanted a war? Fine. But they don't get to choose the battlefield. James pulled her into a hug, feeling her trembling slightly despite her brave words. You're sure about this? Once we start down this road, I'm sure. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Besides, it's too late to stop now. The evidence is already in play. As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a news alert. The story was breaking across financial networks. Respected businessman Robert Maxwell arrested on suspicion of massive fraud. His accomplice, trusted accountant Catherine Mitchell, in FBI custody. Anonymous sources suggesting connections to broader financial misconduct. Dad. His daughter's voice was smaller now, more uncertain. When this is all over, what then? James looked around his office at the military honors on the walls, the family photos he'd have to take down, the life he'd have to rebuild. But beside him stood the one thing that mattered, the one piece of his family worth saving. Then we start over, he said firmly. New house, new town if you want. Anywhere you'd like to go to college. I was thinking about Annapolis, she said quietly. Following your footsteps. Pride and pain mixed in his chest. His daughter had learned warfare at too young an age, but she'd chosen to channel it into service rather than bitterness. First, he said, we finish this. Your grandparents arrive tomorrow. She nodded, steel returning to her spine. First flight in. They'll probably head straight to their lawyers. Good. James turned back to his desk, where Catherine's credit card statements lay spread like evidence of a crime, which he supposed they were. Let's give them something to discuss with their legal team, because this wasn't just about Catherine and Maxwell anymore. This was about every person who'd enabled them, every silent partner in their betrayal. By the time he and his daughter were done, there wouldn't be a single refuge left for any of them. The war was expanding, and they were just getting started. The sunrise painted James's kitchen in shades of amber as he reviewed the morning's headlines on his laptop. His daughter had been busy overnight. The story of Maxwell's arrest was everywhere, each outlet adding new layers of scandal to the mix. Federal investigators probe multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Prominent CEO and senior accountant arrested in massive financial conspiracy. Maxwell Industries stock plummets amid leadership crisis. His phone buzzed a text from Uncle Mike, their lawyer. Court opens in an hour. Divorce papers ready. Want to throw the first punch? Before James could respond, the front door security system chimed. His daughter's voice came through his earpiece. Right on schedule. Grandma and Grandpa just pulled up in their Bentley. James checked the security feed. Catherine's parents, Richard and Elizabeth Porter, stood on his porch looking like they'd stepped out of a country club brochure. Richard's golf tan contrasted sharply with his pale linen suit, while Elizabeth's pearls gleamed in the morning light. Security cameras running? James asked. All feeds active and recording, his daughter confirmed. Want me to come home? Stay at Rita's. This conversation isn't for you. Dad, that's an order, soldier. He heard her sigh. Fine, but I'm watching everything. If they try anything, they're lawyers and golf players, sweetheart. I think I can handle them. The doorbell rang, its chime somehow managing to sound imperious. James took his time walking to the door, letting them stew in the morning heat. When he finally opened it, Elizabeth was already speaking. James, this ridiculous situation has gone far enough. We need to. She stopped short, taking in his expression. Why are you smiling? Because I've been waiting 5 years to do this. He stepped back, gesturing to the living room. Please come in. Tell me all about how you're going to fix things. Again, Richard puffed up like an angry rooster. Now see here, Mitchell. Our daughter, your daughter, James cut him off, is currently in FBI custody. Would you like to explain those transfers from your family foundation, or should we wait for the federal investigators to do it? The color drained from Richard's face. What transfers? The ones Catherine helped Maxwell hide. Nearly $2 million, if I'm not mistaken. James led them into the living room, where multiple laptops displayed various news articles and financial records. Please sit. We have a lot to discuss. Elizabeth perched on the edge of the sofa, her perfectly manicured hands clutching her designer purse. James, surely we can handle this privately. Like civilized people. Civilized? James's laugh was cold. Like when you try to buy me off before the wedding. Or when you convince Catherine to set up those secret accounts, just in case her soldier husband didn't come home. How did you? Richard stopped himself, but not quickly enough. Know about that? The same way I know about everything else. James settled into his armchair, enjoying their discomfort. Your daughter wasn't as careful with her records as she thought. Neither were you. What exactly do you want? Richard demanded. Want? I don't want anything from you. I'm just making sure you understand the situation. James pulled up a document on his laptop. Your foundation is already under investigation. The FBI is very interested in how charity money ended up in Maxwell's personal accounts. Elizabeth's composure cracked. We had nothing to do with that. Catherine handled all the transfers. She said it was for a new corporate philanthropy program. And you didn't bother to verify that? Interesting. James made a show of taking notes. I'm sure the IRS will find that fascinating. Now you listen here. Richard stood, jabbing a finger at James. We can still contain this. Make it go away. All it takes is money. Like you try to make me go away. James remained seated, projecting calm authority. How much was it again? $500,000 to leave Catherine alone? Tell me, does that offer still stand? Elizabeth shot to her feet. We were protecting our daughter. No. James's voice turned to steel. You were protecting your reputation, your social standing, your precious family name. He stood slowly. Well, guess what? That name is about to be dragged through every newspaper in the country. How's the country club going to feel about that? Richard's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. Are you threatening us? Threatening? No. I'm just telling you what's already in motion. James moved to his desk, pulling out a thick folder. Would you like to see the evidence? Your daughter was quite thorough in her record-keeping. Every transfer, every meeting, every time you helped her hide money from her soldier husband. We were building a safety net, Elizabeth protested. In case I died in combat. James's smile was razor-sharp. How disappointed you must have been when I kept coming home. Dad. His daughter's voice came through his earpiece. Maxwell's lawyer just called a press conference. You're going to want to see this. James turned on the television, finding the news channel already covering the scene. Maxwell stood outside the federal building, looking haggard in a wrinkled suit. Patricia stood beside him, her face a mask of cold fury. I want to make a full confession, Maxwell was saying, his voice shaking. I betrayed everyone, my wife, my company, my employees. But I wasn't alone. He swallowed hard. Catherine Mitchell wasn't just my accomplice. She was the architect of this entire scheme. Elizabeth gasped. Richard cursed under his breath. She approached me 3 years ago, Maxwell continued, with a plan to embezzle company funds. She had everything worked out. The hidden accounts, the fake documentation, even ways to disguise charitable donations as legitimate business expenses. He looked directly into the camera. I'm deeply ashamed of my role in this crime, and I'm cooperating fully with investigators. He's lying. Elizabeth shrieked. Catherine would never. Oh, but she did. James muted the television. Your daughter learned from the best, didn't she? All those lessons about protecting yourself, keeping secrets, using people's trust against them. He turned to face them fully. Tell me, did you teach her how to fake phone logs too? Or did she figure that out on her own? Richard's bluster finally failed him. He sank onto the sofa, suddenly looking every one of his 70 years. What do you want from us? I already told you I don't want anything. This isn't a negotiation. James walked to the door, opening it. This is me telling you that your daughter is going to prison. Your foundation is going to be investigated. Your reputation is going to be destroyed. He smiled coldly. And there's nothing your money can do to stop it. Our granddaughter, Elizabeth, tried one last time. Think about her future. I am thinking about her future. That's why I'm making sure she never has to deal with manipulators like you again. James's voice hardened. Now get out of my house. Your lawyers can contact Uncle Mike about the foundation investigation. As they slunk toward their Bentley, James watched them through narrowed eyes. 20 years of condescension, of subtle digs, and not-so-subtle attempts to undermine his marriage. All of it exposed as the hollow posturing of people who thought money could solve any problem. How'd it go? His daughter asked in his ear. Exactly as expected. You get everything, full audio and video. Plus some interesting reactions when Maxwell threw Mom under the bus. She paused. Dad, there's something else you should see. Mom's asking to talk to you. James watched the Bentley disappear around the corner. No. She's saying she'll tell the whole truth. About everything. Too late. James closed the door firmly. The truth is already out there. She just wasn't smart enough to control it. Because the war wasn't just about exposing their crimes. It was about destroying the carefully constructed lies they'd built their lives around. And they were just getting started. The Federal Detention Center's interview room reminded James of interrogation rooms he'd seen in Afghanistan. Same stark walls, same fluorescent lighting, same feeling of trapped desperation. Catherine sat across the metal table, her designer outfit replaced by a plain jumpsuit, her carefully maintained appearance showing the strain of 3 days in custody. You came, she said softly, hands folded on the table. The handcuffs gleamed under the harsh lighting. Figured I owed you one last conversation. James remained standing, unwilling to give her the comfort of eye level. Make it count. How is she? Catherine's voice cracked slightly. Our daughter? You lost the right to ask about her the moment you chose him. James's voice could have frozen the room. But since you asked, she's fine. Already applying to colleges. Annapolis is her top choice. Catherine flinched. The military? James, you can't let her. Let her. He leaned forward, hands flat on the table. Like you let her carry your secrets? Let her cover for your lies? Let her watch her family fall apart while you played house with Robert? I never meant to hurt her. Tears welled in Catherine's eyes. You have to believe that. Have to? James straightened up, laughing coldly. I don't have to believe anything you say. Neither does the FBI. By the way, how's that going? I hear Robert's been very chatty with the prosecutors. The mention of Maxwell made Catherine's face harden. He's lying about everything, trying to save himself by destroying me. Funny how that works, isn't it? James pulled out his phone, showing her the morning's headlines. Career CEO claims accountant masterminded multi-million-dollar fraud. He smiled without warmth. Sound familiar? I can prove he's lying. Catherine leaned forward urgently. I kept records of everything. Hidden accounts, real estate deals, all of it. If you help me access my private files, you mean these files? James held up a USB drive. The ones our daughter found months ago? The ones the FBI already has. Catherine's face went pale. She knew? She knew everything. Every meeting, every phone call, every time you slipped away to be with him. James's voice turned to ice. While I was dodging bullets, our 16-year-old daughter was gathering evidence against her own mother. James, please. Catherine reached across the table, but he stepped back. We can fix this. I'll tell them everything. About Robert, about my parents, about all of it. Fix this? James's laugh was bitter. Like you fixed the company books? Or like you fixed our marriage by sleeping with your boss? I'll sign whatever you want, she pressed on desperately. The house, the accounts, full custody, it's all yours. Just help me show them Robert was behind everything. James studied her for a long moment. Even now, trapped and exposed, she was still trying to manipulate the situation. Still trying to find an angle, a way out. You still don't get it, do you? He shook his head. This isn't about deals or arrangements. This is about consequences. What do you want from me? Tears streaked her makeup. An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught. James pulled out another document. Divorce papers. Because from where I'm standing, the only thing you regret is losing control of the situation. Catherine stared at the papers. You're really going through with this? Already done. My lawyer filed first thing this morning. He slid them across the table. Full divorce, citing infidelity and criminal conduct. No alimony. No shared custody. No chance of reconciliation. You can't just throw away 20 years. You threw them away. James's voice cracked like a whip. Every time you met him, every lie you told, every moment you made our daughter cover for you. He leaned in close. You want to know the best part? She suggested Annapolis herself. Said she wanted to understand honor and loyalty. Things her mother never taught her. Catherine's composure finally broke. Sobs racked her body as she slumped over the papers. I loved you. I swear I did. Maybe. James straightened up. But you loved his money more. His status, his lifestyle, his promises. He moved to the door. Goodbye, Catherine. Enjoy federal prison. Wait. She called after him. What about my parents? The foundation? James paused at the door. You mean the foundation that helped launder Maxwell's stolen money? The one our daughter found records of? He smiled coldly. Don't worry. The IRS is handling that personally. You're destroying everything, she whispered. No, Catherine. You destroyed everything. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. He knocked for the guard. One last thing. Our daughter wanted me to tell you something. Catherine looked up hopefully. She said thanks for the accounting lessons. They really helped her follow the money trail. The door closed on Catherine's renewed sobs. In the hallway, James pulled out his phone. You get all that? He asked. Crystal clear, his daughter replied. Audio and video archived. Uncle Mike says it's perfect for the divorce proceedings. How are you holding up? A pause. I'm okay. It's weird seeing her like that, but it doesn't hurt as much as I thought it would. That's because you're stronger than she ever was. James headed for his truck. Any word from Maxwell's camp? His lawyer's pushing for a plea deal, offering to testify against Mom and the foundation in exchange for a reduced sentence. She snorted. As if we don't have enough evidence already. Let him talk. James started the engine. The more he says, the deeper they all sink. Dad. Her voice turned serious. Grandma's been calling schools trying to sabotage my Annapolis application. Says a military academy isn't appropriate for a Porter woman. James felt his jaw clench. Forward everything to Uncle Mike. If they want to play that game, we can add harassment to the foundation investigation. Already done. He could hear the smile in her voice. Also sent copies to Aunt Jessica at the DAR. Apparently, the Porter family's social standing isn't what it used to be. James couldn't help but feel proud. His daughter had learned warfare at too young an age, but she'd learned it well. Every move calculated, every response measured, every strike designed for maximum impact. Meet you at Rita's? She asked. The divorce papers should be processed by now. Might be worth celebrating. On my way. James pulled onto the highway, leaving the detention center and Catherine in his rearview mirror. And daughter? Yeah, you did good. All of it, the evidence, the timing, everything. Your old man couldn't be prouder. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about consequences, about showing the world that actions had cost. And they were making sure everyone paid in full. 6 months later, James stood in the federal courthouse, watching as Catherine was led away in handcuffs. The judge's words still echoed through the chamber. 15 years for conspiracy, fraud, and embezzlement. No chance of early parole, no lighter sentence for cooperation. His daughter's meticulous evidence had made sure of that. You okay? His daughter stood beside him, wearing her first real business suit. At 17, she looked older than her years, tempered by the battles they'd fought together. Better than okay. James watched Catherine disappear through the secure door. How's Maxwell taking his 20-year sentence? Not well. She checked her phone. According to the prison gossip, he had a complete breakdown when they assigned him to regular population instead of minimum security. keeps demanding his country club privileges. James allowed himself a small smile. And Patricia? Living well is the best revenge. His daughter showed him a society page photo. She got everything in the divorce: the houses, the cars, even his precious Mercedes collection. Sold it all and donated the money to charity. Real charity, not the foundation's kind. They walked out of the courthouse together, into the bright autumn sunshine. News cameras waited on the steps, but they'd gotten used to those. The story had been too big to ignore prominent CEO and senior accountant brought down by military husband and teenage daughter. The press loved the David versus Goliath angle. "Mr. Mitchell," a reporter rushed forward. "Any comment on your ex-wife's sentence?" James kept walking, his daughter close beside him. They'd said everything they needed to say through evidence and testimony. The facts had spoken for themselves. "Look," his daughter nodded toward a familiar Bentley parked across the street. Richard and Elizabeth Porter sat inside, watching the courthouse exit. Last desperate attempt to salvage their reputation. James asked, "Too late for that?" She pulled up another news article on her phone. IRS finished their investigation of the foundation yesterday. Tax fraud, misappropriation of charitable funds, illegal transfers. They're facing charges of their own now. The Bentley pulled away from the curb, carrying Catherine's parents and their shattered dreams of social standing with it. James watched them go, feeling nothing but a cold satisfaction. "Read us for lunch?" he suggested. "We should celebrate." "Can't." His daughter's smile was bright enough to light up the street. "Got my final interview with the Annapolis Admission Board this afternoon. They're particularly interested in my demonstrated leadership and investigative skills." Pride swelled in James's chest. "They'd be fools not to take you." "Oh, they're taking me?" She grinned. "The board chairman was very impressed by my detailed analysis of financial fraud techniques. Said they need officers who can think tactically in the modern battlefield." They reached James's truck, not new or fancy, but paid for honestly. Unlike the Mercedes that had started this whole thing, now evidence in a federal warehouse somewhere. "Uncle Mike called this morning," his daughter said as they pulled away from the courthouse. "The divorce is final. All assets awarded to you, plus compensation for the money she stole from your deployment pay." "Blood money," James growled. "We'll donate it." "Already handled. Set up a scholarship fund for military kids." She touched his arm. "In your name." James glanced at her, seeing the woman she was becoming. Strong, principled, unstoppable. Catherine's betrayal had forced her to grow up too fast. But instead of breaking her, it had forged her into something extraordinary. "There's one more thing," she said quietly. "Mom tried to send me a letter from prison. Asked for forgiveness. Said she wanted to explain everything. And I sent it back unopened. Marked, return to sender." She stared out the window at the passing city. "Some things don't deserve forgiveness." James squeezed her hand. "You sure about that? It's okay to feel." "What? Sad? Missing her?" She shook her head firmly. "She made her choice, Dad. Every day for years, she chose him over us. Over you. Over me." Her voice hardened. "Actions have consequences. Isn't that what you taught me?" They pulled into Rita's parking lot, the familiar diner a sanctuary after the courthouse's formality. Inside, the regular customers nodded respectfully. They'd all seen the news, all known the truth about Catherine's betrayal. Small-town justice had its own way of working. "Colonel," Rita greeted them with coffee and pie, already set out at their usual booth. "Saw the news. 15 years, huh?" "Justice served," James replied simply. "And that Maxwell fellow got 20. Rita's satisfaction was clear. "Good. Never did like the way he treated my staff at his fancy club." She turned to his daughter. "You did good, honey. Showed them all what happens when you mess with the wrong family." After Rita left, his daughter pulled out her laptop, ever the strategist, even now. "We should talk about the house. Real estate agent says it'll sell fast, especially after we remodeled Mom's spaces." "You sure about moving?" James asked. "We could stay, make new memories." "Dad." She gave him a look that was pure tactical officer. "Annapolis is waiting. You've got that security consulting offer in Virginia. And this town," she gestured around, "it's served its purpose. We won the war here. Time to move on to the next campaign." James studied his daughter across the table, seeing shadows of his own military bearing in her posture, his own strategic mind in her planning. But there was something else too, a fierce sense of justice, a determination to right wrongs that was entirely her own. You know, he said carefully, your mother wasn't always. Don't. His daughter's voice was firm. Don't make excuses for her. She wasn't a victim or a pawn. She was a willing participant who thought she could trade up to a better life. She met his gaze steadily, and she lost everything because of it. James nodded, accepting her judgment. She'd earned the right to it, after all. While he was fighting overseas, she'd fought her own war at home, armed with nothing but truth and determination. So, he said, changing the subject. Virginia? Fresh start. She pulled up a map on her laptop. Good schools, strong community, no country clubs in sight. A small smile, and plenty of opportunities for a retired colonel and his future naval officer daughter. Future naval intelligence officer, James corrected, noting the gleam in her eye. Let's be honest about where those skills of yours are headed. She laughed a real laugh, free from the tension of the past months. Well, I did learn from the best. Strategy, tactics, intelligence gathering. She raised her coffee cup. To new beginnings. James clinked his cup against hers. To justice served. Because in the end, that's what it had been about. Not just revenge, but justice. Not just punishment, but consequences. They'd taken on the powerful and corrupt, armed with nothing but truth and determination. And they'd won. Catherine would serve her time. Maxwell would rot in prison. The Porters would face their own justice. And James and his daughter would move forward, stronger for the battles they'd fought together. The war was over. They had emerged victorious, and their future stretched out before them, bright with possibility.